They chuckled when she flubbed her initial shot, elbowing each other as if it were a prank. An elderly woman, scarcely speaking, clutching a sniper rifle too lengthy for her stature. But as she tweaked her hold, the sunlight glinted off the barrel, unveiling something unanticipated. A series of tiny, purposeful etchings along the metal. Not blemishes, but figures. The trainer edged closer, peered, then stiffened. Those weren't practice marks, they were verified kills. And suddenly, the range fell hushed. Welcome to Veteran's Voice. Before we proceed, share in the comments where you're tuning in from. And if you think tales like this need to be shared, hit that subscribe button. The dawn sun sliced through the faint mist lingering over the training fields at Fort Black Ridge, where the Marine Corps' newest recruits had just kicked off their first live-fire drill. The air was thick with the scent of burnt brass and gun oil, with far-off echoes of rifle shots weaving through the quiet like a pulse. Under the billowing American flag, rows of green-clad recruits stood in ranks, their anxiety masked by feigned bravado. Among them was someone who stood out. She wore no regulation uniform, no rank badge, no nameplate. Her boots were worn and weathered. Her rifle looked like it had endured wars across decades, and she stood apart, silent, eyes half shut under her tattered cap. Some younger recruits murmured about her en route to the range. One dubbed her a guest instructor. Another quipped she might have strayed from the base clinic. No one knew her identity, and no one bothered to ask. When the time came to shoot, she took position at lane 9. The others smirked as she settled into a prone stance, her movements measured as if recalling how her body worked. A lanky recruit named Packer muttered loudly enough to be heard, "Looks like Nana's here to school us in crochet." Snickers followed. Even the trainer, Staff Sergeant Weller, gave a subtle grin but didn't step in. He'd seen her listed as an observer, no rank, no unit, no orders. He figured she was a civilian, perhaps a retired Marine's widow reliving old days. Her first shot veered wide. The laughter swelled. She didn't flinch. Just blinked once, shifted her elbow, exhaled steadily, and chambered another round. Her hands were steady, her breathing even. But it wasn't mere comment, was something icier. She wasn't fazed. She was calculating. 3 more shots followed. Only one grazed the target's edge. By now, most had looked away, bored. The action was in other lanes where younger shooters were nailing center mass, bragging and high-fiving between rounds. But Weller lingered. Something faint had changed when she tuned her scope for the 4th time. He noticed her hand glide over a part of the rifle no Marine typically checked, not the trigger, but the barrel. There, etched into the dark steel, nearly faded by years of use, were numbers. Not factory codes, but marks carved with intent. 9 rows, tight and small. 43. Weller's eyes narrowed, and he stepped closer. Then she fired again, dead center. A stillness followed, as if the wind itself paused. Her expression didn't shift, but her grip tightened briefly, as if her body recalled something her mind had buried. She loaded another round, took her time, and fired again. Another bullseye, then another, and another. Within moments, she was painting the silhouette with surgical accuracy. No jerk from recoil, no hesitation after shots, just breath. Slide. Fire. Precision in motion. By the 5th bullseye, the other shooters had gone silent. The jokes died. No one laughed. Some recruits peered toward lane 9, trying to grasp what they were witnessing. Weller approached now, his boots crunching gravel, eyes locked on her rifle. He stopped just shy of the firing line, wordless, staring at the frame as the light shifted and revealed it clearer. The numbers weren't tallies. They were initials, one beside each mark. Weller's throat tightened. They weren't boasts. They were names. Each one meant someone didn't return. Suddenly, the context of the day, the jokes, the dismissal, the notion she was just an old woman playing Marine crumbled under its own folly. He looked up. She hadn't stopped shooting. The silence around Lane 9 grew weightier than the gunfire's echo. One by one, heads turned. Even the brash ones, Packer included, paused mid-reload to watch this enigmatic woman fire again. Reload, fire again. Not with pride, not with anger, but with a chilling calm reserved for those who've entered rooms full of foes and exited without a word. There was something unique in her rhythm. Now, not just skill, not just experience. It was the kind of shooting born from necessity, not drills. Weller knelt by the range line, eyes focused. The more he studied her rifle, the more improbable it seemed. No standard Marine rifle bore that kind of wear or pattern. The barrel was strengthened, not by regulation, but field-crafted. Her scope, civilian by brand, military by calibration. She'd built this rifle for herself, for something far more personal than training. Then it struck him. This wasn't a nostalgic veteran clinging to glory. This was someone who'd never truly left the battlefield. Someone who carried the war with her. And those initials weren't a tally. They were tributes. 43 names etched into the steel she carried, like a second soul. Range cold, Weller called, stepping forward, hand raised. The others looked puzzled. No one else had called a ceasefire, but she rose calmly. Setting the rifle down like it was an extension she could detach and reclaim later. Without a word, she turned to depart. "Ma'am," Weller said, intercepting her halfway to the gates, "hold on." She paused, turned slowly. Her eyes were clear, not young, not old, just knowing. "I need to understand," he said, quieter now. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" She said nothing, her gaze flickering to the rifle, then back to him. Not defiance, not secrecy, just limits. The kind you don't cross without earning it. He tried again. That barrel, those names. Still no response. He softened his tone. "I've seen many shooters, been on missions, but I've never seen that. I need to know who you are." At that, she spoke, her voice steady, unshaken. "You don't need to know who I am. You just need to train them better than the ones who didn't return." Then she walked away. No salute, no rank. Just a quiet specter leaving the range like the fallen she carried. But the recruits didn't forget, not Packer, not any of them. They stood still long after she vanished. Later that evening, Weller sat alone in his office, her file open on his desk. It took hours and favors to find it, hidden deep in an administrative vault. Not in the usual database. Our name was there. Barely. Redacted missions, no listed operations, just a service period marked classified under USOC Clearance 7. And one line under commendations, advised, do not contact. No rank, no medals, no photo. But there was a handwritten note beside. The form in confident script, signed by someone Weller didn't know. Malister, Commander. It read, "If she appears on a range, don't disturb her. Don't ask questions, just observe and learn." Weller stared at that line for a long time. That evening, he walked the range perimeter alone. At Lane 9, he knelt and saw something. Overlooked before a single spent casing pressed into the dirt where her elbow had rested. Etched into it, hand-carved like the initials on her barrel, was one more name. K.R. Vale. Weller understood. She hadn't come to teach. She'd come to remember. 3 days later, the range resumed its rhythm, shouting, laughter, awkward drills. No one spoke of Lane 9 aloud, but every rookie avoided it. Even Packer, who'd spent weeks mocking anything without a combat patch, now went quiet, passing the lane where she'd stood. But it wasn't just the recruits. Weller found himself waking at dawn, earlier than usual, standing by lane 9 with coffee, waiting for nothing, hoping for something. He wasn't sure why. Maybe regret. Maybe reverence. Or maybe he felt something had shifted and he'd missed its moment. That morning, a letter arrived, not digital, but paper, sealed in a brown envelope with no return address. Just for typed words, "She will return once." Signed with a symbol, not a name, 3 vertical lines, slashed by a horizontal one. Weller didn't recognize it, but it felt ancient, like something carried before insignia were stitched. He kept it private. That afternoon, rain began, light at first, then steady, the kind that keeps recruits indoors. But Weller stood at lane 9 as if drawn by something beyond habit. And then she returned. No words, drenched, no coat, just her rifle slung across her back. A different, one longer barrel. Older stock, more worn. This one bore no visible names, but a faint script shimmered along its side, not engraved, but burned. She didn't glance at him, didn't request clearance. She walked to lane 9, dropped into prone position, and aimed at the 600-yard target. Weller signaled the other instructors to stand back. "Hold off," he ordered. She fired. The round split the rain. Ping. Direct hit. She cycled the bolt. Fired again, another hit. But this wasn't like before. She wasn't just striking targets. She was counting, her rhythm deliberate. Ping 1, ping 2, ping 3. By the 6th shot, the instructors had retreated to watch, some under cover, others in the rain ignoring the chill. By the 10th, Weller knew this was a test not of skill, not of memory, but of resolve. She was igniting something, and everyone felt it building, like thunder before the sky split. She fired. The round split the rain. Ping, direct hit. She cycled the bolt. Fired again, another hit. But this wasn't like before. She wasn't just striking targets. She was counting, her rhythm deliberate. Ping 1, ping 2, ping 3. By the 6th shot, the instructors had retreated to watch, some under cover, others in the rain, ignoring the chill. By the 10th, Weller knew this was a test not of skill, not of memory, but of resolve. She was igniting something, and everyone felt it building, like thunder before the sky split. Then she stood, slung the rifle, and turned not to leave, but to face the recruits huddled under the barracks eaves. Packer was there, jaw set, arms crossed, others behind him, young, soaked, still half cocky. She approached, stopping just close enough to speak softly. "You ever missed a shot?" She asked Packer. He blinked, uncertain. "Yeah, sure. You ever missed one that cost someone's life?" Silence. She leaned closer, her tone calm, not menacing, but piercingly honest. "Because I have. 43 times." She unslung her rifle, unwrapped a cloth from the barrel, revealing names burned into the steel. Not a kill count, comrades, teammates, mentees, one carved deeper. "Vale, you don't get this from being flawless," she said. "You get this from enduring." She pointed to the stock. Someone Packer maybe saw it first. A faint line burned into the wood. Reaper 9, classified. Weller froze. He'd heard that code years ago in a briefing on high-stakes extractions. The tale was dismissed, buried, no records. But it was whispered among instructors like myth. Reaper 9. One sniper, one mission, 1 week in a kill zone with 3 squads, pinned. 47 enemy kills. 0 casualties extracted. One figure walking out, rifle smoking, uniform charred, voice gone. It wasn't supposed to be real, but there she stood, in civilian clothes, rain-soaked, unknown, carrying that name. She said no more, just nodded at Weller, picked up her rifle, and walked away. Before vanishing past the gates, she called back, "Train them better." That was the last they saw of her. No signature, no name, no rank. But 2 weeks later, Lane 9 was unofficially renamed by the recruits. The Reaper Line, every Marine who stepped there fired with steadier hands and sharper eyes. No one spoke her name after that day. Not the recruits, not the instructors, not Weller. But everything changed. The mood, the focus, the weight in the air. A ghost or a reminder had passed through. The range grew quieter, more disciplined. The recruit's arrogance didn't vanish, but the laughter did, especially from Packer. He hadn't touched his coffee since that morning. Instead, poring over training footage, pausing at the moment she raised her rifle. It was like he was chasing something bigger than accuracy. He wasn't alone. Rumors swirled. Some called her a shadow operator. Others said she'd been pulled from Black Ops retirement. A few guessed she was a sniper from a unit so secret their names were burned, not written. But no one knew. And that was what lingered most. Weller had spent his career teaching that skill could be measured by grouping, steadiness, response under stress. But nothing prepared him for a woman who missed a shot deliberately, then hit 9 bull's eyes without adjusting, or for the tally carved into her rifle-faded notches. Uneven, burned like scars no one was meant to see. He tried to find her file the next day. It was gone. Her name was erased from every roster. Even the range's sign-in sheet was blank. Weller, persistent, dug into archives, pre-digital logs, old rotations, nothing. She was never listed as assigned or present. Only one thing remained. Lane 9, the uneven lane no one used because it was tricky for rookies. Now it felt hallowed. A week later, a wooden crate arrived, no sender. Inside, a restored M40 sniper rifle. No note, no serial, but carved into the buttstock. Reaper 9. Weller placed it in the armory, untouchable, mounted above the door. Every recruit saw it when signing out weapons. They stopped asking about it after the second week. Some glanced up, others touched their chests instinctively. A silent nod then came Major General Hartley, commander of the Eastern Divisions. Special Operations Training Command, known for being efficient, aloof, and unimpressed. During a routine visit, he stopped at Lane 9, staring at the ground like it was freshly marked. "This is the lane?" he asked. Weller nodded. Hartley, crouched, touched the worn bench, then stood. His face was blank, but his eyes flickered. "She stood right here." He saluted slowly, lower than regulation, and left without another word. That's when the legacy began. Recruits requested Lane 9, despite its difficulty. Sharpened their focus. Others wanted to prove something. No one spoke her name, but her presence, her steady aim. Her drenched figure without apology dash stayed. Small offerings appeared under the bench. Patches, a coin, a sealed note. Weller left them untouched. They weren't tributes, they were memories. 3 weeks later, a file appeared in Weller's drawer. No cover, no signature, just a page. Operation Ghost Trace, unconfirmed survivor report. A grainy photo showed a woman kneeling by a shattered wall in an unclaimed desert. Her rifle rested across her thighs, blood on one arm, eyes focused. Behind her, 3 soldiers, barely conscious, 2 under ponchos. At her feet, a glowing satellite transmitter, a timestamp. 0341Z. In red, subject presumed dead. Status, shadow asset. Contact prohibited. No one spoke of it again, but a week later, she returned. Not armed, not in uniform. She walked the range perimeter at dawn, eyes scanning like she was counting ghosts. She stopped at lane 9, stood for a minute, then turned to Weller, watching from the shadows. She raised her hand, not a wave, not a salute, just a deliberate gesture, like closing a door. Then she vanished into the trees, a threadbare patch on her shoulder, a black viper around a broken clock. No unit, no name, just a symbol that was the last anyone saw of her. But the legend endured. Every few months, a stranger in civilian clothes stood near lane 9, left an item, a casing, a letter, worn gloves, and left. The armory's sign-in sheet added a column. Lane 9 requested. Above the door, a plaque, still watching no one. Spoke after her final shot. The casing spun at her feet, catching the fading sun, and the air smelled of cordite, heat, and awe. The wind stilled, as if nature honored her. The recruits who'd laughed, who'd nudged each other at her first miss, stood motionless, their faces stunned with the realization they'd been wrong. Not just mistaken, profoundly wrong. The trainer hadn't moved since her last shot, when the final target shattered at 600 yards. His clipboard hung forgotten, his fingers twitching like they sought something tangible. His eyes stayed on the engraving, not decorative, not a joke, but a count, the kind whispered in Ramadi in Helmand. In a dusty tent under a blackout tarp, about a sniper with ice in her veins, a ghost with green eyes, a silhouette that silenced valleys. They'd called her Reaper 9 because they didn't know her name, only her mark. And it matched the one on her rifle. The recruits turned to her, drawn like magnets. No one spoke. Garcia, who'd called her grandma, stepped back, not in fear, but in reverence. She didn't turn, didn't acknowledge them. She cleared the chamber, locked the rifle, and set it down with careful hands. Then she walked away, slow, silent, no pride, no vengeance, just precision. She hadn't come for their approval. She'd come for one reason. Outside, the wind stirred, pushing dust toward the gate. She passed the mess hall, the hangars, the barracks, her boots steady. A few officers glanced, one twice, as if they'd heard a rumor they couldn't place. She vanished behind the western building, and no one saw where she went. That night, in the trainer's office under a flickering light, Weller reviewed the day's logs. Her line read, "Observer, no last name, no unit, just a call sign and a date." In the achievements box, he drew a line. No score, no comment. You don't grade someone like her. 2 officers entered, asking why training stopped, why the recruits were shaken. He handed them the clipboard and pointed to the rifle. They read the engraving, and their faces shifted like clouds split by lightning. One muttered, "Is that real?" Weller nodded. The next morning, a notice. The range was closed for maintenance. Recruits were sent to classrooms. No explanation. But the whispers spread about her missed shot, maybe deliberate, a test of their mettle. Because someone with that count doesn't miss by accident. They whispered about a mountain pass, a pinned unit, a sniper on overwatch for 3 days. No sleep, no badge, just eyes. They whispered she'd come to judge the new generation. Maybe she left disappointed. Or maybe she knew someone was watching, and one day a strange rifle would appear again with a name that didn't belong. They'd remember the one who missed on purpose, the trainer who froze, the recruits who quieted, and the rifle that carried more ghosts than any room could hold. They'd remember her silence, her precision, and the number. Because some numbers don't lie, and some legends don't need to speak. If this story stirred you, tell us, what would you have done in that moment? Share in the comments. And if you believe quiet heroes like her deserve to be remembered, like, subscribe to Veterans Voice, and share this tale with someone who values honor.